And he took a couple of weeks. Well, he took a week off without pay to go down and get the home court advantage. Well, you know, there were a couple of reluctant Pistons not too pleased to be in Chicago for Christmas. Isiah Thomas and Bill Laimbeer disregarded league rules and arrived in Chicago about 3 hours ago, Marv.
Well, NBA players are required to be in the city that they're scheduled to play in the night before the ball game, and Isiah Thomas and Bill Laimbeer ignored the league regulation, arrived by charter at a local airport. Both, we should point out, declined to be interviewed before the game by NBC. Pistons coach Chuck Daly, though, is no Scrooge, but he still had to find them.
Oh, I'm not upset at all. We have kind of a standard procedure in terms of missing practice, coming late for practice, missing planes. If you do it, you accept the fine, and we move on.
Pat, I get the feeling that Chuck Daly was trying to deflect this matter. He did not want it to mushroom. How would you handle it?
I think you have to take a hard line. I mean, we had a rule. We go together, we come together, we leave together. And to be very honest with you, I would have said, if you don't show up at 9 o'clock for the plane, don't bother to come tomorrow. Well, these guys might not have taken they might have taken their time getting here, but I assure you one thing. When they take the floor today, they're going to be very, very intense. They both want to maintain this Pistons edge over the Bulls. Their first meeting this season was last Wednesday at the Palace in Auburn Hills.
It was another frustrating night for Michael Jordan and the Chicago Bulls against Isiah Thomas and the Detroit Pistons. A night of missed opportunity, missed assignments, and even missed layups. And for Coach Phil Jackson, it was hauntingly familiar. Another loss to his rival.
It's kind of like going to the dentist when you play against the Pistons. You know, you got to go, but it's not going to be any fun.
You know, they've really had our number for as long as I can remember.
I hope we're not intimidated. If we are, then certainly that's the problem right there, because we give them an upper hand before we even step on the court.
The bad boys can be intimidating. The Bulls aren't the only team that knows this in the NBA, but they might know it best. Although the Bulls have battled back at times, the Pistons have usually slapped them down. Sometimes the rivalry has escalated into something beyond basketball. But it's the intensity of this rivalry that the Pistons thrive on.
We know that the minute we slip up, they're going to surpass us, and it's always a thing of trying to push them back, push them back down, and I think that's why they bring the best out in us.
They're the team that's keeping us from winning a championship, and for us to make it to the next step, they're the team that we must be able to overcome.
In 1988, the Pistons eliminated the Bulls from the playoffs in 5 games. In 1989, in the conference finals, Michael Jordan tried to carry his team, but the Pistons adjusted their defense and won it in 6. Then, last year, the Bulls took the Pistons to the brink, a 7th game. But again, a smothering defense held down Jordan. The Pistons went on to their 2nd straight title. As for Jordan, the search for a solution continued.
I guess a couple of years ago, they made it a rule to try to take the ball out of my hands and double team me as often as possible and make the other players hurt them in terms of scoring. And they perfected it to the best of any team in the NBA right now.
To try and help Jordan this season, the Bulls added Dennis Hobson and an active inside body in Cliff Levingston. The new offensive plan was to spread the scoring and to rewrite the Pistons' defensive rule book. Jordan clearly has been de-emphasized. Where he once accounted for 35% of the Bulls' scoring, he's now down to 26%. But Wednesday night in the Palace, Jordan's support staff again disappeared as the bench failed to score in the first 3 quarters in an embarrassing 105-84 loss, forcing Phil Jackson to reevaluate his team, making today's game critical.
We've been trying to involve everybody in this, and if we find this isn't successful either with this personnel or this type of offense, we have to make adjustments to find a way to beat this team, and this is where we really start. We said, hey, our execution hasn't been good last week. Secondly, maybe our personnel were overmatched in certain situations in the ballgame. We'll try to remedy that in this game, and if those situations don't work, then we have to look at trying to pull things apart and find another way to beat them.
It doesn't surprise me that he says that, because something does and will have to be done for us to get past this hill. We've been very successful against other teams. We've gotten to a level where we play at the finals against Detroit, and yet we cannot get past that team. And something has to be done if we cannot do it now.
Phil Jackson putting too much pressure on one regular season game in the month of December. Yes, it's significant, but it's an 82-game schedule. I was talking about it last night with Joe Dumars. He said, you know, we're going to forget about this game in a week or two.
Well, Marv, I think you have to look forward to playing some regular season big games, but I also think Chicago is putting a lot of pressure on themselves by talking about a lot of different things. They talk about the offense, they talk about the bench support, they're talking about the Michael Jordan rules, and they're talking a lot about Detroit. Well, there's 26 other teams to work. It's supposed to be a fun game.
Okay, this Christmas edition of NBA Showtime will continue in a moment. Coming up, the Insiders with the always compassionate Peter Bessie and Bob Ferry right after this.
There are some centers out there. You got Benoit Benjamin, you got Mike Gaminsky, and you got LaSalle Thompson who could fill that role. But it's up to the Jerry West to be able to figure out how to make all these things in the cap work.
Okay, Pete, early in the season you said that Dick Versace was in jeopardy in Indiana, and in fact about a week ago he was fired. Who's on the hot seat now?
Well, from what I understand, Ronnie Rothstein of Miami is, and Minnesota's Bill Musselman.
What do you think?
Well, I'll tell you, last week I called Lou Chaffel, who's a managing partner in Miami, and he told me that Ron wasn't in trouble, that everything...
Costas live in St. Louis. Shootout. As we go back in time, check out this, the premiere of Showtime on the 3rd of November.
Now, of course, if you don't get the break, you've got to pull up for the jumper. We're not going to let this hoop behind us go to waste. We get one shot per show for the entire year, each of us, then we'll see who's ahead at year's end. Ready? Watch. Right? No! No!
Come on, let's go. We don't have time.
But I can't shoot my high arcer. The studio lights are in the way. Oh, but the lights! But you got to shoot it flat. You got to go with the Tommy Heinsohn line drive jumper.
Right, Bob. The Heinsohn line drive jumper. Well, moments ago, here at Chicago Stadium, Pat fired the first shot in today's battle. Now, this was officially sanctioned, I should point out, under the Albert rules. Riley hoping to move into a commanding two-shot lead over the St. Louis Slinger. Here it is, Riley. Yes! Unbelievable.
Got to hit air.
Pat has done it again. All right, let's see what Bob has in store. Let's go to St. Louis.
You know, Marv, I should point something out to you. First of all, Pat played in the NBA. I once won a game of horse on Francis Lewis Boulevard in Bayside. Yet in the studio, he doesn't have the lights on his angle to the basket. He shoots in climate-controlled conditions today.
Fella,
I'm outside where it's 20 degrees and 6 inches of snow. Now, what I did do, though, Marv, is I brought a little muscle in to show you what an ecumenical holiday Christmas is, the spirit of the season, no network rivalries. My neighbor and good buddy, Dan Deerdorf of ABC's Monday Night Football, here to clear the boards in the unlikely event that I should miss.
And Marvin, Pat, a cup of holiday cheer to both of you. You notice the Costas has broke out the fine, exquisite holiday china today, Bob.
All right.
Dan, do you have a step ladder for him?
Bob, can you hear me?
Yes.
Would you just ask Dan, is Andre Waters joining him for dinner later on?
Is Andre Waters joining you for dinner later on is the question.
We'll set a table for him around my knees.
Costas, your shot.
All right. You wouldn't believe that I made 13 of 15 in practice, right?
Yes. Good follow-through, Bob, now. You know, don't exhale.
Yes!
A hit. A make.
All right, Marv. Marv, it is Christmas. And just once, I want you to give me what I have earned and what I deserve. A Yuletide yes.
Well, I'll tell you what, Bob, it's 2-1. We have to get back to the studio. I mean, you gave up a week's pay and a game here in Chicago for the home court, so we got to get back to NBC.
Was that an edited piece? Is he live? That
no, I don't think he's live.
Impressive.
He's on tape.
Bob hitting from long range, very nice, and we congratulate Bob and Dan Deerdorf, who rooted him on. It looks like we have wrapped things up for this edition of NBA Showtime. That's it for the pregame festivities. We'll see you at halftime, and when we come back, it's the Bulls and the Pistons on Christmas Day from Chicago.